Double bind.
Double bind.
Double bind.
Double bind.
Double bind.
Kroger is that bad grocery store. Don't want to pay their people.
Oh, wait, tell me more, Kim. Seriously.
I saw something about they don't want to pay. What are they calling the hero pay for the people that have been in the grocery store? They're talking about closing. Hazard pay. Thank you. I just saw a headline. I didn't get deep into it, but I understand that they were considering closing instead of paying their employees.
Oh, wow.
Employees, which is kind of that's no good.
Yeah, because these are the people that have been they've been the oil in the wheel, since this whole pandemic started. That's crazy.
Yep, risking themselves.
Well, they can't close down because that fried chicken is everything.
Wait, you buy fried chicken from the supermarket?
I wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that proudly.
Why do people say that about
Negro, how you gonna buy fried chicken from a supermarket?
Well, what's the issue? If the supermarket has a kitchen,
don't sleep because I had that same attitude when I was living in Texas.
Wait, hold on. What's the same attitude? It's a perspective.
No, you talking about why you buying fried chicken from a grocery store? I said the same thing. I've been to that daggone thigh and wing. Forever changed.
Twaz, let me guess. I'm sure Twaz is on my level. Twaz does not. We are not buying fried chicken in no damn supermarket. Correct? Please be on my side.
Ralph's does have some bomb fried chicken. I must admit. Especially after 7 o'clock, it's on half off, so you get a whole 12 piece for $6. So
don't sleep.
Don't sleep on the fried chicken from the supermarket.
I can't say I haven't had fried chicken from the supermarket, but it being any good, I'm not sure about that.
Boogs, final verdict.
Ask any black person if the Ralph's fried chicken in LA and in Hollywood is any good, and they will tell you it's pretty good. It's
Ralph's
better than Popeyes for sure. Yep.
Boogs lives in Toronto. Everything's clean and nice in Toronto.
Yeah, so that's true.
Different. But I was gonna say, I did get fried chicken before at Publix, and it was really good.
Oh yeah, Publix is kind of like Whole Foods firstborn that don't live at home. So I'll take that. Well, it is kind of above a Kroger and below.
I guess it's better than a gas station chicken because I hear that's all the rage too.
Depends on how much to drink, I think.
Okay, you know what? How many
chicken at gas station?
Apparently they do. What's the place?
Wawa?
Track? Wawa is amazing.
What is the place? It starts with an R, I think. They're
Racetrack.
Like in the Northeast. They talk about this chicken. Well, down in South Carolina, they talk about the Speaks gas station has chicken. They didn't when I was growing up. I'm not interested in trying that out.
I would say Wawa for me would probably be the best sort of big box. Store. Yeah, because Twaz, remember when we discovered, you helped me discover brisket in Wawa in Philly, and I haven't turned back. Yeah, it was good. It was a brisket sandwich.
Brisket?
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing. I always say, what you mean, no?
I mean, brisket and fried chicken is like completely different elements. Like, that's something that you really, really know. You have to know what you're doing in order to cook it and prepare it properly. Fried chicken is just fried chicken. I mean, you can mess up fried chicken, but it's more likely for you to screw up the brisket than you to screw up the fried chicken. So I don't know about that.
I'm telling you, probably because I never had it before, but yeah.
Was it brisket though?
It was a brisket sandwich I bought that day. Remember when we came downstairs, one across the street?
Neil, have you ever had
it real brisket before?
Yeah, have you ever had it?
That's the thing. I had never had it before, so I would.
Okay. We understand.
We're gonna throw that in the trash then.
Yeah.
But I love me some Wawa. I definitely got to say that.
Royal Farms is the place.
Yes, Baltimore. Yes,
that's what they say.
Yes. That's a yes. I had that in Baltimore.
It's a hell yes.
Hell yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yes.
It's a gas station.
No. Royal Farms is they're like their own little franchise because the one I had in Baltimore. Yeah, you're right. All right, you know what? Let's get into it. Y'all gonna make me start feeling bad about my particular little quirky taste. And so give me a couple seconds.
Your gas station brisket adventure.
Yeah.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Double Bind. I am your host, Springle. Welcome to the state of blackness in the world. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I've got another full house in this week. Of course, I've got my co-host Boogs, co-host Snead, and of course, co-host Twaz back in house. And our guest co-host this week, we've got Kim from DC.
Say what's up, hey guys, what's up?
Hello.
Hola.
Hello.
Yeah, as always, we're jumping right in since we had a little warm-up conversation prior to this. So talking about gas station food. Twaz, you had something you wanted to discuss. In fact, a specific movie. What was that?
Well, earlier this week, I had the opportunity to take in a Black history film. I guess you can say it's a Black history film, being that it stars four very prominent African-American historical figures, being Sam Cooke, Malcolm X, Jim Brown, and who's the fourth one?
Cassius Clay.
Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. I got a chance to see that, sit down and watch it with a good buddy of mine. The movie was One Night in Miami, and I must admit, I was taken aback and it moved me. It spoke to me in many ways. One being,
why?
Something about four Black men sitting in a hotel room, cussing each other out. It's something about that resonates to me. There's something about that I can relate to. There's something about that speaks to me. And, they're having this argument and it's like, it's almost like I was there. I'm like, whose side am I on? Whose side is he on? Whose side is... So, it's not just them arguing, but the topics they were talking about. Malcolm X was basically pushing Cassius Clay, pushing Sam Cooke, pushing Jim Brown to do more, letting them know their possibilities and their intent and their purpose in this world, using their talent to push the race forward, weaponizing their gifts, weaponizing their accessibility and fame to move the race forward in the 60s during civil rights. It touched me so much. So many times I find myself, to be honest with you, in kind of Malcolm X's shoes. He was the kind of character that's, kind of pushing them to, say something. So it just really touched me, just the philosophical arguments and debate. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. And I also want to give a big up to Regina King as a director. When you get these actor directors, for me, it's like usually I'm disappointed, you know what I mean? And if it's mediocre, I'm impressed. But I actually forgot Regina King directed this. I didn't remember it until the end. I was like, oh shit, Regina King directed this. So I also give a big kudos to Regina King on her directorial debut. It was a job well done.
I don't think, no, this is not her. This is her directorial debut for film, I think, but she's directed TV shows, if I'm not mistaken.
I think she has.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
When I say director, I mean film.
I'm just being specific.
As a film, her directorial debut as a feature film director. Yeah. Kudos. I think she did an amazing job. Not only were the visuals captivating and interesting and kinetic, performances were three-dimensional, organic, and it was just a very well done.
Kim, what was your take on the movie?
Well, Twaz, I appreciate your assessment, and I watched it last night for the second time. The first time I actually fell asleep on it, but Neil knows this.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. Lord, I'm with you.
But I want to say, when I talked to Neil about it, he said, I hope it was because you were sleepy or tired or whatever. So I think what it was for me, I actually enjoyed the film with the second viewing, and I was tired. And I'll say that I can understand perhaps why people may be bored by it, because it, like I believe the original version is a play. There's a lot of dialogue and stuff going on. So it can be, I think, kind of hard to keep up with. But I I like the film for the same things that Twaz is saying about these four, really concentrating on these four Black men that we know quite a bit about individually. So a lot of the content to me was known content. I didn't think there were any like new perspectives presented, anything enlightening about them in their lives so much. But I appreciated the fact that there were these four men and there were this push and pull challenge of how we support the civil rights movement are the ways that we do that, that there's not one way to do it, which was, Sam Cooke's argument about what he was doing with his music. So I thought it was interesting, too, that there was not a lot of issues where white people really interjected into the space. Of course, there were scenes with white people and you could see some of the influence, but it really was focused on these four powerhouse individuals. And I appreciated that. I liked the film. It was okay. Like I said, it was not any like new mind-blowing, illuminated content like the stories. We pretty much understand their life story. I think it's pretty well known, but I think that the point of the play turned film was really to kind of show the interaction between these four men in like a comfortable setting outside of their platforms that we normally see them.
Gotcha.
Or interacting with each other. I've never didn't even know Malcolm X and Sam Cooke
or friends.
Even had a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Boogs, what was your take on the movie? What was kind of like the most significant thing about the movie for you?
I think for me, I echo Twaz and Kimberly's thoughts. Like when Twaz was saying he felt like he was there, I kind of felt that too. But I also feel like that because the conversations that they were having, especially between X and Cooke, those are conversations that are still ongoing now. They're still present. So that part of history is still happening today. So I feel like that's why that resonated with me. As far as what Kimberly was saying about like falling asleep, yeah, I had those moments because it was very dialogue heavy and it was a lot to follow along because not a lot of action was taking place. It was really conversation and there was nuances within their conversations. I did find it interesting, but the dynamic between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X, they had the same goal. They shared a similar goal, but their mythology to get to that goal was very, very different. And X was almost forcing his opinion on Cooke, and Cooke was trying to explain, you have your way of doing it, radicalized or whatever, but my way is through my voice and my music and owning my business and writing songs that people are going to hear all over the world. X's standpoint was more of, you should write your music and sing and use your voice for only our people, only Black people. So there was this constant back and forth between the two of them. But I did find that they came to some kind of resolve towards the end. And I also like the fact that they used ice cream as like an icebreaker, if you will, to have them join together. It was a nice added touch. Usually we see alcohol, women strippers or whatever, some type of something else to bond heterosexual men in these spaces. We usually see those misogynistic type of characteristics. So ice cream, I felt was a really nice touch. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I think everyone should watch it. I've had a lot of friends that have said to me, it's an old movie. It's about old people. And it's like, well, no, it's actually about them when they were young.
Wait, they said it's a movie about old people?
Yeah, because they think of X and Cooke and Jimmy and Muhammad as older men. Gotcha. Another generation far removed from their own lives. And, there's a very subtle connection between then and now. And I think that, watching that, you will see that and it will resonate.
Go ahead, Twaz.
Oh, sorry about that. Cooke finally got to see what Malcolm X was saying. And I don't think it was just an opinion. I think Malcolm X was saying fact that if you want to move the needle forward, you have to speak it in your records. Sam Cooke's strategy was to make money and I guess give it back to the community. Well, Malcolm X was like, no, you have to speak of the change. And once he played that Bob Dylan record and said, he's speaking truth. And this white boy got nothing to gain from speaking up about the injustice going on. He has nothing to gain. There's nothing, in it really for him to do it, to speak out the way he did. and his album sold more than Sam Cooke's, but any of Sam Cooke's records.
Well, he's a white guy. He was a white man in a white man's world. So I mean, he gets that pass. They almost always allow him to do that. Am I wrong?
Bob Dylan has nothing to gain by speaking about the injustices in America.
I see what you're saying.
So him playing that song and showing that to Sam Cooke, this is why we don't got to sing about this. You know what I mean? And he is. He's speaking up because he sees the injustice and he has nothing to gain from it. And look at you. Are you speaking up on it? You know what I mean? So it's like he showed him that mirror of look what he's doing. I think Sam Cooke got to see Malcolm X's point, pushed him to write a song or sing a song that actually means something relevant.
Pushed him or guilted him. Pushed him or guilted him.
That's what I was thinking.
Both. A mixture of the two. A mixture of the two. Offended him, guilted him, offended him. Some sort of like mixture of all that. Maybe you guys can chime in here. Malcolm X specifically represents the new Negro, if you know what I mean. If you're familiar with that term,
right?
Let me just explain a little further. So for me, someone called Malcolm X old to me is a little bit of an oxymoron because I think Malcolm X, his influence culturally on Black men, his swag, if you will, I think that's one of his biggest contributions, where Malcolm X kind of taught Black men or showed Black men how to be smart, articulate, and angry without being a brute or without being a barbarian. I think Malcolm X gave a cultural swag that still resonates.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I think Malcolm X specifically was part of the transformation of what we consider a Black man to act. I think Malcolm X is part of that shift, you know what I mean, of us sitting in ourselves in a way that we don't feel like we're cooning or Uncle Tomming,
yes,
or delegitimizing ourselves. I think Malcolm X kind of gave us the tools and a template in which to express ourselves and still maintain our quote unquote Blackness. Does that make sense to anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Are you calling me a barbarian just because I'm a little aggressive?
I mean, it makes sense. It does make sense. No shade, Twaz, but I'm a little surprised that's coming out of your mouth. I'm a little surprised. You're a little
surprised that what came out of my mouth.
That one, the character that you identify most with in this film was Malcolm X, and this entire speech that you just gave, and I was a little like, wait a minute. As I kept looking at the phone, I was like, is this Twaz talking? Like, I'm a little confused. Like, what? Did we just enter some parallel universe? But I'm speechless. But I will say, without sounding redundant, because you all basically said a lot that I was going to say, I don't mind dialogue heavy films. I don't. I like my thoughts to be, provoked. I like to be pulled into the conversation to what's actually happening and what's being said and the intent behind it. I just felt like we had to wait a while just to get to that point. I think I fell asleep as well because it's just like, I don't care about what's going on. Like there was no meat. And it was just a lot of like, okay, until we got to the hotel room. And then once we got there, that's when I think the film started to soar for me. I was a little confused. And Kim, you were the historian out of the bunch, but I'm a little confused in the timeline because I always felt like at the end of Malcolm X's journey, I thought his position started to change and shift a little bit. And he started to embrace or at least introduce his non-radical mythologies and just approach. I thought that he was more leaning to like the Martin Luther King kind of peaceful, intelligent, non-violent, invoking approach. Am I incorrect in that?
So this is something I had a little bit of issue with watching, I guess, this fictional perspective, if you will, because it seemed to be kind of an amalgamation of time a little bit as far as like the characterization of the characters. I felt was a little off in certain ways. As far as your question about timeline, yeah, they did talk. It really was at the core of this film about Malcolm X's break from the Nation of Islam. That was when he began to figure out what was going on with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all the women that he had and the babies. And he was, he came to the Nation of Islam kind of pure. He went to Mecca. And so they talked about that as well. I don't know what year that was, but remember he mentioned it in the film and asked Muhammad Ali to go with him, or Cassius Clay, as he was at that time. You see later that Cassius Clay becomes so because he joins with the Nation of Islam. And I believe that when Malcolm X is assassinated, I don't think the two of them were even talking. But back to the change in Malcolm X's, philosophies and rhetoric is that he went to Mecca. And I think that's when he really changed, when he saw all hues of people that were Muslim, and he really became kind of less radical in that regard. So again, the timeline was a little iffy for the film for me.
If I'm not mistaken, I think so the FBI started their surveillance of Malcolm X in 1964. And that's also when he broke away from the Nation of Islam, funny enough. And that
actually makes sense to connect because the movie was set in February in 1964.
Nice. I didn't know that. I did not.
So that would be the two white men
outside the hotel.
Outside the hotel potentially would have been FBI informants.
Which is confusing.
I'm sure the FBI started surveilling Malcolm X way before 1964.
Well, I mean, but in a way, in a more deliberate way now versus
officially. No, they probably doing deliberate. Probably officially, they probably started following him in 1964. But I'm sure they were following him way before that. With just as much deliberation and scrutiny. Number one, and number two, I don't think Malcolm X ever really became quote unquote non-violent. I don't think Malcolm X ever went to the total nonviolent Martin Luther King Gandhi route. His MO has always been, we got to defend ourselves. They shoot at us, we need to shoot right back. We kind of film kind of catches Malcolm X in between these kind of undergoing a shift organization wise, and he's looking for allies. And I don't know if you guys can, feel the desperation in his spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like in the movie, especially towards the end, what you're saying, Twaz, I felt like he knew his untimely demise was upon him. Like he knew.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very, very much so.
I think that was the conversation he had with Jim Brown in the hotel room that wasn't on screen. Mm-hmm. It was kind of alluded to. So when Muhammad and Sam Cooke came back in the room, that sort of heaviness that was there between Malcolm and Jim Brown. Because remember, he almost started tearing up and Jim was like, what's wrong? So I think that was the conversation. He probably was like, again, deliberating on his possible demise as well. Is there any specific scene that moved you guys individually in this film? Anyone want to chime in? I have one and I'll talk about it.
I think the conversation between Jim Brown and Malcolm X, when after Sam left and Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, went after him. I think that little scene that Jim was telling him about,
great scene.
The light-skinned Negro always seems to be the most militant. I think that's like, I was waiting for that because that's exactly how I was thinking. I was just like, what? Why are you mad, bro? Like, have a seat. Let's talk. And Jim Brown was probably the character that resonated with me the most. His stand, he was able to kind of see, everyone's perspective and speak and calm the room down. He was able to take all that aggression and kind of bring it to a halt where we could actually have a conversation. I find I do that in my life all the time. So that scene, that conversation, that exchange between those two men was the one that hit home for me.
Kim?
I think we talked about it. I think when everybody came back to the room, the scene over the ice cream, particularly when Malcolm X said to Sam Cooke, the reason why I go so hard on you is because of how much I respect you. Again, I don't know much at all about their relationship. So when they were having this very contentious argument before Sam left, went off and he and Clay left, it was just nice to see it come back, and again, it was a very kind of present moment. I think about what's going on now, like listening to Malcolm X and his, when he was upset, talking to Sam Cooke about, Black people are dying every day, and about what's going on and you got to do something. Seemed very present. So, but I appreciated having that moment, because he was kind of like, bye, good riddance.
Get out of here.
When he left. And I was like, okay, what's really going on here with this relationship? Seeing him have that moment and he declare how much respect that he had for him.
And so which character kind of resonated most with you in the way they were presented on screen?
You know what? The Malcolm X interpretation, we've seen so much of him. I constantly think about the Spike Lee film. It was so moving and seemed so factual. And I thought the actor did a good job. But I like Sam Cooke's role. I made me curious to learn more about him. I don't know if you all have seen the documentary about who killed Sam Cooke.
No, I actually saw that.
It's a great documentary on Netflix that
I saw
kind
that.
of delves into his death.
Is it the two deaths?
Or the two deaths. Yeah, the two deaths of sorry, I had the title incorrect. And my perception of him from that documentary is that he was supporting Black people through the work that he was doing, like he was arguing in this particular film. So what really was shocking to me with his character, Neil, I know this is not what you asked me, but as far as his character is, I was a little surprised when he was staying at the Fontainebleau and how he was like, not staying where the Green Book location. And I think that might've just been a kind of a way to bring in that subject matter about us not being able to like freely stay where we wanted to stay during those times. But I was a little surprised. I thought that I didn't know if that was an accurate characterization. So it really made me want to learn more about Sam Cooke and his intentions through his music. And I didn't know if that was like a real, like did Malcolm X really have like beef with him about his music? Like I want to know more about their relationship.
Gotcha. Boogs, any particular scene and character?
It has to be Sam for me. I mean, Malcolm X always, as Kim mentioned, the Malcolm X movie, so that was brilliant and accurately depicted. But I think Sam Cooke in this movie, because I really didn't know a lot about him, I still don't, but I did. His character did prompt me to do a little bit research after the movie ended. And I did find that at the end, he sang "A Change Is Gonna Come," which I felt was based on the dialogue in the movie. It was inspired by both Cooke and X. But I did find that footage of him being on that television network and singing it live for the first time did actually happen, but there is no actual footage. I guess it got wiped or they destroyed it. So I did find that interesting. But yeah, to answer your question, it would definitely be Sam Cooke. For sure. And
is there any particular scene that you remember?
I think the dialogue between, I'm sounding repetitive, but I think the dialogue between Cooke and X, again, is similar to the conversations we have now, even here on this podcast. When I think about Twaz and myself, I can be a little bit more radicalized with my thinking and my way of how we should do things. And Twaz is the opposite of I. And so, yeah, I think that would be the scene for sure.
Our in-house Republican Twaz. Speak on it. Who's the character that resonated most with you?
Look, let me push back. I'm not an in-house Republican, number one. I may not always say things the way you guys may want to hear things, but I'm actually quite a little bit more revolutionary left than you guys give me credit for, which I don't want you to know how revolutionary my thinking is all the time. I don't want people to know because it might scare some people. But to answer Neil's question, I really feel like this is Malcolm X's movie. And to be honest with you, I have a deep connection with Malcolm X just growing up and just family stuff. I kind of teared in different parts all throughout. Because he's the one that met Sam Cooke did too. Those two actually are the ones that met the tragic death, Sam Cooke and Malcolm X. But, we knew Malcolm X's imminent death was coming. And I just was sad because he knew it too. And I think, seeing his paranoia brought tears to my eyes. Seeing his desperation made me melancholy. And I had to appreciate the actress who played Betty Shabazz. She was consistent with her melancholy, glassy-eyed, almost cry That was her performance consistently throughout it.
The most disrespected person in America is the black woman.
That choice she made, I felt it. I felt it. That she made a very specific choice that had Betty almost about to bust into tears each time we saw her. And I thought that worked. But the part that really made it all came together was after the blow up and Sam leaves. And Sam comes back and Malcolm tells him about the 5 shows he went to see and starts recounting that Boston show where Jackie Wilson pulled the plug. It undercuts all the negativity that Sam thought he was getting from Malcolm X, and he realized, oh, this brother loves me and it respects me as an artist and has researched me as an artist and enjoys me as an artist. So, that part was when it all came together, because sometimes even in life, people may take your criticisms and your judgment as attacks and not realizing sometimes the research and the love and the aspiration and hope you really want to bring to their work. And it's not just shooting them down. But, nonetheless, sometimes, you have to kind of like take things to a certain levels to get people to understand. And there's a good, interesting comment that Sam Cooke made. Like, you piss off everybody in the world. You trying to piss us off too? Sometimes you really got to like push people, and because when people are not trying to hear nothing, sometimes you really got to like get up in their face and almost offend them to get your point across. All that said, we see the impact, and Sam Cooke went and had the courage to do Change Gonna Come. Because I really don't think if Malcolm X wanted to push him, he would have did it. And that's one of his most popular songs. And number 2, and that's the song they play at the end of X, for Malcolm X's assassination scene, which I thought was interesting.
No, you're absolutely correct. That's why I made that comment. I mean, I didn't say it to offend you, but I was a little surprised. I honestly thought that you were going to side with Sam Cooke. If you recall the conversation that we had prior to this recording, when Boogs was like, well, I'm curious to see who you're going to identify with. In my mind, I had already made up the character. Once I saw the movie, I was like, okay, I already know what the answer to that is, like Sam Cooke. So to hear you say that you aligned yourself with Malcolm X and seeing how passionate you are about that decision, just in this episode alone, it's a huge departure for me. And honestly, I would like to hear and explore more of that from you, Twaz. Like you said, it will scare people that if people thought just how radical your thoughts were. But then you say in the next breath, sometimes you got to piss people off and get in their face and get their attention and practically offend them. Well, offend me, because I understand that people are multifaceted. I get it. There are some people who are not. And I would like to think that none of my friends are, but sad reality, sometimes it is. But if that's not you, then I need to see more of that of you. I don't want to put you in a box.
So you feel like I don't usually take a stance on race? Is that what you're saying? You don't feel like that's you?
I don't want to put you in a category. Really? I don't want to close. Let me
that's
finish.
Interesting.
I don't want to close, my mind on, your views and your train of thought and the persona that you want to present out into the world. I need to see the other side of Twaz.
No, I mean, I think, it's like any, treasure or, something that's below the surface, sometimes you don't see it. You don't look below the surface. And sometimes if you look, you don't see it. Sometimes you have to dig to see beyond, below the surface. There's layers to things. There's layers to people. There's layers to books. There's layers to, paintings. And I'm a multi-layered individual. And to be honest with you, Snead, the fact that you, put me in a middle Republican box, good. I want you to think that's the box I'm in, to be the box you think that I'm in. I don't want people to know where I'm coming from. Yes, Malcolm X has been part of my childhood, part of my educational development, his debates, the book, Autobiography of Malcolm X, of his life, watching him speak, seeing his swag. Malcolm X has been a definite influence of in me becoming me. My father was a fruit of Islam. So I grew up practicing Islam. So he has a definite imprint on my life. Watching them do Salat brought back memories, Malcolm X and Cassius Clay doing Salat in the hotel. I was like, whoa, they're really doing it. I don't think I've ever seen, maybe that's you don't see many movies with, African-American males doing the Islamic prayer, especially in a positive light. So it really spoke to me. And you're right. It is a little dialogue heavy, the film, but I think sometimes people need to sit down and listen. I think it's an interesting exercise. Sit down and listen. And you're right. Sometimes it might take 2 watches. And I'm glad whoever did watch it 2 times good. So make sure you caught every word they were saying. Yeah, because they talking some ish. You know what I mean? They really talking about some stuff right there. One of the lines that really was a real insider of like, why is it always a light-skinned dude that's the loudest about white supremacy and the white devil, blah, blah, blah. That was an interesting note. And when Jim Brown brought that to Malcolm X didn't say he was wrong. He said, that's an interesting perspective.
That's interesting that you said sometimes you have to push a person to get them to dig deeper. For me, Jim Brown, just like Snead, I guess that's where we're twins, was a character that resonated with me because I have a thing for characters who are underdogs or play the background and play it well. And he was very sort of centering and calming for the group. But the opening scene with him visiting Mr. Carlton, and Mr. Carlton would not let him, and Mr. Carlton, it was brilliant because again, I love that slow buildup because the funny thing as an actor, and I'm watching it, I'm like, something's going to happen in this moment. And I didn't know what it was. And then when he was like, we don't let niggers in the house.
Yeah.
That hit me like a punch. And I was just like, okay, this is a family friend. The family's known each other for a long time, but still yet race plays a factor here. And so fast forward where Snead had mentioned that scene between X and Jim Brown's talking. I think that moment was kind of pivotal in his understanding, or at least played a huge part in his understanding, where he said white people are always wanting a pat on the back for showing some type of humanity to black people or empathy. So because I can imagine how that cut him as a person, you know what I mean? And so taking it back to you, Twaz, with sometimes going into people's faces, because we've had discussions about race here. And I remember one of your comments in one of our previous episodes where you said, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but something along the line of, are we still talking about that? Or are we still, why do we need to always lean on all these identifiers like race? So I'm surprised that, you know what I mean? What you're saying, kind of like what Snead was saying earlier, I'm surprised that you have this stance and that you just said what you said in regards to some of the context you've given us before. Because I'm a little surprised that you would even kind of allow for someone to maybe take a more aggressive stance in terms of race relations and identity. And yeah, Bugs, I mean, am I mistaken? I think Snead, help me out. Kim can stay out of this.
I don't want you to be the person. I think I never thought you were deep. Because I'm even a little bit more confused now, because I feel like the overall tone of this movie was to get down to the nitty gritty and the foundation of everyone's personal perspective and beliefs, and trying to get everybody on the same accord and forge that and weaponize that for the greater good. Am I wrong, or am I correct? Okay.
I don't know if we have to be on the same accord, but I think we wanted to hear ourselves.
That was the intent of the movie. He wanted to align himself with these people who could kind of, push the movie.
Okay. Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. I thought you meant Neil wanted all of us all to be on the same accord. Sorry.
No. That will never.
That
would never happen.
We have to get some years under our belt before that conversation can even take place. But I don't know. Like I still. Well, but you know what, Twaz? In a way, yes, because the purpose of this podcast is to gain insight and a better understanding of us as individuals and us as a collective. Would you agree? Would you disagree?
I agree. Yes, more insight into as a collective. Yes.
So when you say that I don't want you to know, and I'm not saying we don't need to know everything, but when you say that I don't need you, or I don't want you to know everything that I'm thinking, I don't know. I find myself scratching my head, because for those who are listening to you while you speak, that might change the approach and the perspective. And that goes for any of us. It goes for Boogs, it goes for Kim, that goes Springle. I'm sorry, I totally forgot your name. So, I mean, that can be said for anybody on this platform. Like, if you constantly present yourself in one way, that and if you introduce like today's a perfect example. My approach to you today is completely different from what it's been on previous.
In Twaz's defense, I will say this though. So our friendship, for example, some people may wonder why we're friends, and we've been friends for a very long time. And despite having different views on things, one of the things I appreciate about Twaz is the fact that he's incredibly brilliant and very deliberate in his, and very well versed in his stance. So it's not just, he won't say, this is this way and not be able to explain why. So so in your defense, Twaz, I will have to say exactly what you're saying to us today, in the sense of that you're multi-layered. I may sometimes crack jokes about the veneer that you present to us. But the reason we are friends and we've been friends this long is because I understand and I've seen glimpses of the layers underneath. So, so just to give us some props in that, as much as we with you, you know what I mean? We think we're a Black Republican on the low, but I do believe you're much more deeper than that. And that's why we've been friends this long. So, yeah.
For instance, even I think you.
No tears. Stop hugging me.
For instance,
no tears.
I do production. Most people work on productions who have done my productions. I predominantly hire for crew African Americans, predominantly, especially for my AC Black males, African American females. That's what I do. Okay, like I want them to get hands-on production experience. Okay, so like that's not something I brag about, but you wouldn't know that because I'm not bragging about that. But that being said, I don't brag about that because when I got clients that's paying me X and X amount of money, what I'm not going to say is, I'm hiring all niggas to work on my crew. I got to keep it a certain kind of way on top, in front, even though, but in the back, I'm trying to, mentor young men so they learn how to do, how to be a PA. They learn how to set up a light. They learn how to, do twist the channels and do a stereo channel for when we're doing the audio. So all I'm saying is when you're dealing in this world, and moving through this world, we have what we do and we have what we look like we do. So I'm just giving you an example of like where I'm at. How I'll go with my business. I'm all about moving our people forward. I'm all about taking somebody who has interest in production and filmmaking. I'm going to give them a gig. They might not even get paid the first time, or they might. You know what I mean? Giving them a shot. I'm all about that. I'm very all about that. And I can't say that to everybody because somebody said, that's not fair. Why don't you give a young white intern a shot? No, it's not happening. Not happening. Unless his daddy cut me a check, then I might do it.
So if I may, I think that just listening to the two of you, I'm hearing growth, right? There's a shift happening with this conversation that we're having. And again, I think it's part of the podcast. And I don't think the listeners will necessarily be confused. It's been explained. But as we are growing as individuals, they will too as our listeners. I feel like they'll be getting to know our personalities, our ideologies, our thinking process, our methods, how we interact with each other. And I think there will be a level of enjoyment for them as well as us. And the hope would be that as they're listening, they're growing too.
Great. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We will wrap up. I know it seems kind of short, but it was actually just about an hour we've been recording. But thank you guys for jumping in and discussing this film, One Night in Miami. Those of you who haven't viewed the film, you can find it on Amazon Prime. So this is Springle, Snead, Boogs, Kim, and Twaz signing out for this week. Don't forget to check in next week for our next episode. And FYI, big surprise for you guys, we will be doing our 3rd episodes every month live on Clubhouse. So look out for that. Follow us on social media. We'll keep you informed. Thank you for tuning in. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and now Clubhouse, as well as all major streaming platforms. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And we'd love to hear from you, so leave us a comment.